It started with a sound no one expected to hear in the middle of the night. A cry, not human, not quite animal. A desperate, trembling whimper echoing through the trees behind Lydia's cabin. Alone in the wilderness, she should have locked the door and stayed put. But she didn't. Wrapped in nothing but her coat and courage, she stepped outside and followed the sound into the moonlit woods. What she found froze her in place. A bear cub, small, wide-eyed, and crying like it had lost everything. Instead of running, it turned and looked at her. Then it walked deeper into the trees. And waited. As if it wanted her to follow. What began as compassion soon unraveled into a decades-old mystery buried in the forest. A secret of loss, survival, and a truth far bigger than any bear. She thought she was rescuing a cub. But the cub was leading her to something else. Lydia had grown used to silence. After her father died and the cabin became hers, she chose to live in it full-time, a rustic home buried deep in the Alaskan wilderness, with only the trees and wind for company. It was peaceful, healing. The kind of quiet most people never get to hear. But that night, the silence was broken. She was sipping tea, wrapped in a flannel blanket, when she heard it. A cry, high-pitched, aching. Not human. Not quite animal either. She paused, set the cup down, and listened. There it was again. A soft, almost desperate whimper echoing through the forest, fading, then returning stronger. Lydia's instincts flared. She grabbed her flashlight, pulled on her boots and coat, and stepped into the snow-covered dark. The trees loomed silent, but the sound guided her, pulling her deeper into the woods she thought she knew so well. And then, she saw it. A tiny bear cub, trembling under a cedar tree. Alone. Crying. And watching her. The cub didn't run. That was the first strange thing Lydia noticed. Most wild animals fled at the first sign of humans, especially bear cubs. But this one stood its ground, eyes wide, chest heaving, tiny paws shifting nervously in the snow. It was injured. She could see it now, its back leg dragging slightly, formatted with dried blood. It gave a soft whine again, then turned, and walked deeper into the trees. Then it stopped. Looked back. Waited. As if it wanted her to follow. Her flashlight beam danced over icy branches as she followed the cub's trail. It moved slow enough for her to keep up, but never too far ahead. As they moved, the trees thickened, the snow deepened, and the forest swallowed every sound. Lydia's heart pounded, not just from fear, but from the mystery unfurling with every step. After nearly a mile, the cub stopped. They stood before something half-buried in snow. A cabin. Old. Rotten. Long abandoned. The cub limped toward the door, pushed it slightly open with its nose, then looked at her. Lydia hesitated, flashlight trembling slightly in her hand. Then she stepped inside. The smell hit her first, musty decay and wet earth. Then her light caught on a rusted stove, broken furniture, and on the far side of the room, what looked like a child's backpack, worn and molded from time. And in the corner? A pile of bones. Human. Lydia froze. Her breath puffed into the stale air as she stared at the skeletal remains in the corner. They were tucked beneath what might once have been a sleeping bag, now decayed and moth-eaten. The bones were small. Frail. A child. The bear cub whimpered again, nudging gently at the edge of the bag with its nose. Not aggressively, like it was mourning. Lydia forced herself to move, slow and respectful. She stepped toward the moldy backpack near the hearth, hoping for some clue, any idea of who had died here. Inside the bag was a plastic-wrapped bundle of papers, a journal. She knelt, brushing frost from the first page. The ink was faded, but legible. My name is Elsie Calloway. If anyone finds this, please know I didn't want to disappear. My baby and I are okay. For now. Lydia swallowed. Elsie. The name rang like a bell she couldn't place. She flipped carefully through the pages. Each entry told a story of fear and isolation. Elsie had fled her abusive partner, escaping with her infant son into the wilderness, hoping to disappear and start over. She built this cabin with help from a survivalist friend who disappeared one winter. She wrote about learning to live without electricity, foraging, hunting, and protecting her child. One entry caught Lydia's eye. I think he found us. I heard someone out there last night. I don't think it's a hunter. If anything happens to me, please take care of him. The later pages were written in a different hand, crude, childlike scrawl. Mama got sick. I made her tea, but she didn't wake up. The big bear is still here. He keeps coming back. I named him Thunder. I'm not scared. I think Thunder is my friend. It's been 3 winters now. I don't know what to do. I'm lonely. The last page read, "If you find this, please don't be mad at the bear. He helped me stay alive." Lydia's hands trembled. This wasn't just a tragedy, it was a buried life. A child. Alone. Forgotten. But what happened after? And who was this cub? Lydia sat in the middle of the ruined cabin, her breath visible in the freezing air, the journal still open in her lap. The cub had curled up in a corner, just beneath a boarded-up window. It didn't seem afraid. It seemed patient, like it had done this before. She looked around. Now that her eyes had adjusted, details emerged. Carved into the wall near the bed were small lines, like a child marking time. Over 50 hash marks in groups of 7. Years. Next to that, a stick figure drawing scratched into the wood. A woman, a child, and a large bear. Thunder. Lydia's heart squeezed. He helped me stay alive. Whoever the boy had been, he'd survived here, protected by a bear. Maybe more than 1 generation of them. It was unthinkable, almost magical. And now this cub had returned to the ruin of a life long gone, bringing her with him. Why? She stepped outside and looked around. The storm had passed, leaving the world glowing white. Snow clung to the trees, silence hanging heavy. Then something glinted behind the cabin. She followed it. A grave. Simple. Stones carefully placed. At the foot, a necklace, twisted silver with a small carved bear pendant. It matched the one worn by the woman in the photo inside the journal. This was Elsie's grave. Beside it, a second mound. No marker. No offerings. Lydia dropped to her knees. This must have been the boy. He had made it for her. Then, what? Died here too? Or, had he left? Her thoughts were interrupted by the cub's soft cry behind her. She turned. And for a brief moment, she saw them. Not really, but she felt them. A woman smiling. A child clinging to her. A bear standing nearby, watchful but calm. This place wasn't haunted. It had been guarded. By a bond that transcended even death. Lydia returned to the cabin that evening with a journal wrapped in plastic, the necklace around her neck, and a weight in her chest she couldn't quite explain. The cub followed her all the way back to the edge of her land. Just as they crossed the frozen stream that marked her property line, it stopped. She turned to it, kneeling in the snow. "Is this where we say goodbye?" The cub blinked slowly. Then, as if on cue, it turned and walked back into the forest, vanishing silently into the dusk. She never saw it again. In the following weeks, Lydia contacted local rangers. She told them about the remains. The story. The journal. There was an investigation. DNA was pulled from the bones. One set matched Elsie Calloway, confirmed as missing nearly 2 decades earlier. The child's identity was harder to confirm, but signs pointed to him surviving years beyond his mother's death. A ranger quietly told Lydia, "We don't know how he lasted that long out there. No one could have." But she knew. A bear had helped him. Protected him. Raised him, maybe. Thunder. The local paper ran a piece. Remains found in wilderness reveal tragic survival tale. But the story faded fast. No one believed Lydia when she said the cub led her there. No one wanted to. They chalked it up to grief. Imagination. A wilderness hallucination. But she knew better. Lydia still lives in the same cabin. Still walks the woods. Sometimes, on quiet nights, she hears movement in the trees. Heavy footfalls. A low, breathy huff that stirs the branches. Not threatening. Familiar. She leaves food out sometimes. And once, just once, she found a smooth stone by her back door, curved and clean, resting beside a perfect paw print in the mud. She smiled. The forest doesn't forget. Some truths are buried deep, hidden in pine and silence and snow. But the wild remembers. And sometimes, it sends a bear cub to show you the way.